Now, Grover, we wanted you to come on because of your strong article suggesting the Republicans could lose control of the Congress next year and damage the economy. Grover Norquist says Republicans can kiss their House majority goodbye if they delay the Trump tax cuts. As you may know, I'm inclined to agree with you on that point. We didn't hear about that from Mr. Trump today. What's your quick take on that one, Grover?
It's very dangerous. We delayed the 2017 tax cut that the president wanted from early in 2017 to December 22nd was when it finally passed. We had tremendous growth in 2019, a year after we lost 40 seats and lost the House of Representatives. Had we moved sooner on the tax cut, the year of growth would have been the year of the election. When Reagan was running for office and when he won in 80, in 81, the tax cut didn't really take effect fully until January of 83. When did we get growth? All of 1983. 4 million jobs, smaller economy, smaller workforce, 4 million jobs. A year after, we lost about 25 House seats. Pass the tax cut. Now, small businesses, all businesses need to know what's expensing going to look like. What's the income tax rate going to be? I can't make decisions until I know that, and that has to happen now, not a year from now.
Laffer, you've always taught us down through the years never to delay tax cuts. In this case, with Trump 2.0, it would be tax cuts and it would be extending the old tax cuts, but there'd be new tax cuts. You've always taught us not to delay, Arthur. How about now? Why should we delay now?
You shouldn't delay, and Grover's completely right, Larry. He's just totally right there. If you know tax rates are going to be lower next year than they are this year, what you're going to do is you're going to defer all income you possibly can out of this year into next year and accelerate expenses. And so it'll make this year a really bad year and it'll make next year a really good year. I mean, that's exactly what happened to Reagan in 81 tax bill. It's happened to Jack Kennedy, as you wrote in your book, very clearly. And it also happened to Harding and Coolidge. So I think Trump is very clear on this message. Do not delay the tax cuts. You know, there's going to be an automatic delay in there just because you can't pass the bill prior to January 21st. I mean, you couldn't. So it's going to be a delay in there, but minimize that delay. Make it the least possible delay to get the most possible benefit. And then what he's doing with tariffs, Larry, is perfectly wonderful. He's negotiating tariff rate reductions by threatening that these people will not have access to U.S. markets unless they use reciprocity and lower tariffs, lower restrictions on trade, lower quotas, make non-tariff barriers go away, and then we'll have free trade in this world. It's the most unusual strategy for him to get free trade. I love it, love it, love it.
Well, I think it's interesting, as Griff Jenkins reported, that Howard Lutnick answered that question at the presser, and I didn't know this, with talking about reciprocity, which I think is very bullish. I mean, I don't know if stocks went down because of that or not, but I think that's a bullish answer. But Steve Moore, coming back to the other matter, there's still a lot of wrangling going on. The president has not made up his mind. It looks like the Senate, the Republican Senate, wants to delay the tax cuts into a second reconciliation bill. It looks like the House, not so much. There's only two vote majority. So what is it, 217 to 215 in the House? I don't know how many bites out of the apple you're going to get. Bless you for sneezing. And I think that really they ought to make up their mind. They ought to make up their mind. That's point number one. And point number two, I don't know why they can't do one huge reconciliation bill. Tax cuts, border, you name it all. Defense, NDAA, that's going to go in there. Permitting for liquid gold. I just don't understand why they can't do it all at once.
Well, especially, Larry, because right now Donald Trump is so popular. He has a political capital that I haven't seen since Ronald Reagan came in. So you do not want to delay. You want to seize the moment, Larry. And one of the things that I think they ought to do is just do everything. Do the oil policy, do the deregulation, do the border wall, and do the tax cut at once. This guy, I mean, I defy the Democrats to try to stop him. And I think the more you delay it, the more you put this tax cut in jeopardy.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think, Grover, to go to your piece. By the way, Grover, You know, there are going to be some add-ons that are very important here. Most of the bill is an extension of Tax Cuts 1.0, but you've got tax-free cash tips, tax-free overtime, maybe down the line a break on Social Security seniors and their double tax. Steve Forbes has suggested, by the way, constructive things, a capital gains tax or indexing. And by the way, the other thing that's interesting, Steve Forbes suggested to me, this is on radio this weekend, why not widen the brackets for the individuals? Widen the brackets. That's a tantamount to a big tax cut for individuals and small businesses, right, who pay the individual income tax, Grover.
All of those things are fairly easy to score. Much of what we're going to be taking out permanent, taking out 10 years, it's already been scored. We've passed it before. Republicans have voted for this before. The country saw it and they like it. This is not like back in 2017 where we were arguing about all sorts of stuff. We've made certain decisions. I think going to 15%, the president was right in the first place. The corporate rate should be at 15, on the way towards zero, but 15, not 21. That way, you know, we have a 4+ percent corporate income tax average at the state level. So when we say we're at 21, we're really at 25, which is where communist China is. I think we should be a little less taxed than communist China. That's my theory.
and that's a good theory, Grover. And Arthur, the other side of this is the Laffer curve. I mean, it has worked. It's worked, you know, all kinds of comparisons. The CBO estimates from 2016 before the first Trump tax cuts, then 2018 afterwards. Anyway, the point is revenues have almost doubled from what the CBO suggested. There was no loss of revenues. It's all BS. And as Steve Moore and I have been talking about, the current services baseline should be a current policy baseline. You don't score spending as no deficit impact, but tax cuts as having a deficit impact. That's just malarkey. That's just absolute malarkey. And the Idaho Senator Mike Crapo is exactly right, Arthur.
Oh, you know, Larry, you're right on that. By the way, I just love being on with you and Grover and Steve, and I only wish Steve Forbes were on here, too. We'd have the whole gang together. It would be great. But you're totally right. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act paid for itself in the first 2 years. The increase in total federal revenues from the prior 2 years was way higher than it had been from the prior 2 years to the 2 years prior to that. I mean, now we even get the corporate tax revenues are up. It's amazing. These things really work. People don't waste their time on high taxes. They just wait, and when the break comes, they take off. And also, the poverty levels were much lower. The economy did very well. It was a win, 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 win across the board. Bringing it down to 15% and doing all the other ones that you and Steve Moore and Grover suggest is just great. Let's go for it.
By the way, the thing I like most about this segment is that Grover Norquist is coming to us from Buenos Aires, Argentina. And which,
I was there 2 weeks ago, Larry. I was there with Malay 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
spent a lovely 2 hours with him.
Yeah, but you wouldn't come on the show. You were down there, and you wouldn't come on the show. Grover is down there, and Grover came on the show. All of which attests to the fact that the Malay Revolution is working because obviously they have electricity in Argentina, which I think is very important. Steve Moore.
One quick point. The two most popular politicians in the world today are Ronald Reagan and Javier Milei. It's amazing.
No,
I think
Donald Trump and Milei. Reagan in absentia. But Donald Trump and Milei.
I mean, Donald Trump, it's just amazing what they have done. And it's a great thing to see this revolution spreading throughout the world. And we should stop using static revenue and use dynamic revenue to take account of the Laffer curve effects of these tax cuts.
Steve Moore, last 20 seconds. Why should the U.S. Congress give state and local government employees a $200 billion Social Security bonus? What is that all about? 20 seconds.
It's an outrage. $200 billion. It's a phony thing. It's a handout to the public employee unions. No way. That's a terrible way to start a new administration.
They already make more money than private sector workers.
Exactly.
I know.